Welcome to the first. You have a story. If you look back on your life, you've done things for the first time that no one in your family, in your town, in the country has done. This is Dr. Sandi. You have unknowingly paved the way for others without knowing it or even acknowledging it. This is where you tell your story so that those who come after you can walk in your footsteps to build their own firsts. James Manganiello and I met through Toastmasters, one of the leading speaking organizations in the world. James is a trailblazer in his family, being the first to graduate from college. He's also the first at waking up in the morning and the first one to go to bed at night. That's because he goes to bed early. First one to jump into help as he does at Toastmasters, and the first one to arrive at an event. James has been performing in musicals his entire life, starting very young. And the meticulous preparation for Toastmasters really hit a high note for James because now he serves as the videographer and stage master for District 119's Toastmasters events. You can listen to James on his podcast at I Refuse the Number 2 Quit.podomatic.com. That's I Refuse to Quit.podomatic.com. And you can find him on LinkedIn at I Refuse the Number 2 Quit. I Refuse to Quit. Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Sandi. We are on the first with Dr. Sandi, and my guest today is James Man. Pronounce your name for me. I'm going to say it. Manganiello.
Close.
Manganiello?
You don't say the I, and the tip is it's pronounced the same way as the actor. Joe Manganiello, who was actually married to Sofia Vergara.
Yeah,
Manganiello, right.
James Manganiello. Okay, James Manganiello we have here today.
And
James and I
I
have a
did
lot in
check.
common. Go ahead.
I did check. He and I are not related. I looked.
But you could always claim that. Or,
Well, you
or
could.
better yet, just don't say anything and let everyone think you are. So James and I have one thing in common. Well, we're finding out we have more things in common. One is Toastmasters, where we met, and the second one is theater, which we haven't talked about. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. And this is the first that we're discussing Toastmasters on a podcast. So there's
Correct.
our first. And it's the first we're tying it to theater.
Because there are so many parallels and so many similarities. From my theater experience, when you get a script, you're looking at words on a page and you're trying to memorize the dialogue for your character. That was how I learned it. You learn the words, you learn the pacing to it. Once you have the words memorized, it's easier for the director to add dynamics. So slow down, change the pace here, raise your voice here. So we took the direction accordingly. In Toastmasters, it's different. You're your own director, you're your own writer, you're your own producer. So you have to create the content, but you have to work the dynamics yourself and figure out when to add it in there.
So tell me about your background. Tell the audience about your background, James. It's fascinating.
Well, I told you some of it. There's a lot more to it. But since when I was a kid, I used to sing. I sang at family functions as a kid growing up. My mother used to play piano. I started doing musical theater when I was 13 because I could sing. I sang in choruses growing up. We made all county chorus in 1984, so I'm older. I did 6 musicals between high school and college. I did 4 summer theater shows when I was in high school: South Pacific, Annie Get Your Gun, Anything Goes, The Boyfriend. I also worked backstage on a lot of shows. When I was in college, I auditioned for a show called Leader of the Pack. I got a part because I could sing, but I always wanted to do something other than a musical. But each time I auditioned, never got a part. I didn't fit the characteristics of what the director was looking for in a character. So I kept trying and going out, even though I didn't get a part, I would say, "Do you need somebody working backstage?" So that's
Hmm.
how I got my foot in the door backstage. So I would do props, or I would do sound, or lighting, or work the lighting board with the assistant director right next to me, or I would work. Then I learned stage managing, and I used to stage manage shows, and I was good at it because I followed everything to the letter. I would come in early before everybody else, make sure props were there, making sure light was set up, making sure the first scene was set, making sure the backstage was ready. I had that mindset going into it. So oddly enough, when I came to Toastmasters, it was very similar in the sense of the preparation. Going to a meeting, when I first went as a member, I just sat back and I saw everything that everybody was doing, but I had no idea what to do. I was new. So I looked and I said one day, "Do you guys need help?" It's like, "Oh, yeah, sure, we need a grammarian." "What's a grammarian?" "Oh," and they explained it to me. And I had this sheet with the counter. A grammarian basically counts filler words we use in your day to day language. And kinda,
So,
like,
so
sorta. Yeah. And to put it in a very simple, might have done a kinda, should have, would have done a, you get the idea. It's basically filler words that we use in normal day to day conversation, but in Toastmasters, we track it. So I was tracking the different speakers. One particular speaker, who shall remain nameless, used, how can I say delicately, a significant amount of filler words in every category. But as grammarian, I had to give a report. I had to go to the distinguished Toastmaster, the DTM of the club. I said, "Come here, I gotta show you something. How do you report this?" And I showed him the report. 15 ands, 19 so's, 7 buts, 6. I said, "I don't want to be mean. How do I do this?" He said, "+5." I said,
yes.
and just learning that technique was the best thing. He said, "How many?" "+5, +5." The gentleman who I was referring to approached me afterwards, said, "How bad was it?" I said, "You don't want to know." He's like, "Let me see." I showed it to him. He goes, "That's about average." Never forgot
Oh,
that.
wow. Wow. Yes. Toastmaster. Well, Toastmaster for the audience is an organization, it's a speaking organization. It's one of the largest in the world, and it's one of the least expensive, I find, in the world. What you get for the price of $60, well, now it's up to $60
Hmm.
per per quarter. I think it's per quarter,
6 months.
per 6 months. I should know this. Uh, per 6 months, you cannot pay for that in any kind of speech class, in anything that you do. I just came from a speaking seminar on your signature talk, building your signature talk, a conference in Miami. And that's a $2,000 conference. There were about 5 people that I connected with who were Toastmasters.
That's cool.
And we all agreed that what you get weekly or biweekly, or for the people who are there all the time, what you get out of it is so significant that it builds you to where you have a platform that you could speak. And you don't see that. The Tony Robbins of the world, the Les Browns of the world have all been in Toastmasters.
Even Earl
And look where
Nightingale.
they are now.
Yeah. When you look at
Yes.
the history, I did some research in Toastmasters. When we were doing the Women of Toastmasters event last year, I got curious. They were giving me the content when we made the video of the history of people in Toastmasters. But once we finished it, I got curious. Who else did this? I remember, and I still remember the audio program when he was noted this. I was listening to Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale was given the Golden Gavel Award by Toastmasters, I think in 1946, for excellence in radio broadcasting. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with who Earl Nightingale is, if you look at the personal development tree, Anthony Robbins, Les Brown are the children. The fathers are Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, and their fathers, believe it or not, are Earl Nightingale, J. Earl Schoaf, and if you really want to drop a bigger name, Napoleon Hill. Because when you look at the past platform that way, it's basically a generational tree of personal development. When you go farther back, and this is what really got me, the simpler and the more concise the material is. So when you look at it, it's easily digestible. Yes, they use a lot of big words, but when you look at it and the format that they're using, it makes sense.
It does. And I think the format that Toastmasters use, once you follow it, it's so simple. And now that we have access to Pathways, which is online,
Mm-hmm.
it took me a little while. I have to say, I'm a techie and I love everything online, but it took me a little while to adapt from the book. We used to have a manual that was laid out, and I took pleasure in checking off as I go along. And so it's a mindset. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mindset that I had. And so when Pathways came in and we had to make that shift, it took me a little while to connect the dots of how it could be better in Pathways. But I embraced it, and right away I took to it. But it gives you a clear foundation of what you need to do. It gives you a checklist of what you need to do for a speech. It helps you create your first speech, all the way to the different paths that you have or the different types of speaking. Right now, I'm on the visionary communication path. I should say, I just finished it. I literally just did my level 5.
Nice.
And I've done the effective coaching, and I've gone through them. And each time I learn something new. I
Of course.
started this podcast because of the
It
one of
was
the
one of the
paths that I
paths.
was
Yeah.
in.
Yep.
I
Start a
started my
podcast.
blog again. I had a blog for about 10 years when I had my business, and I stopped it. Here it comes. I pop it up, I flip through, and it says, you can start a blog. Well, why not? I can start a blog again. And so I started both my blog and my podcast a couple of years ago because of Toastmasters. So there's my soul. There's my soul for the day.
One
So
still counts. It's okay. I could relate,
we
but I did it prior to Toastmasters without even knowing it. I saw the shift about 2015, 2016. Remember the dynamic started to shift when every couple of years back, everybody was big into the social media around 2009, 2010. Everything that existed went on Facebook, then eventually transitioned to Instagram, eventually transitioned to Twitter, then YouTube, and now the whole trend is TikTok. But for me, I wanted something that was simple and concrete that I could share my thoughts. And just as you, I started with a blog back in 2009. The blog's still up there. I haven't really posted much, but the idea I was trying to do is I was always talking about health and fitness, but it wasn't the idea of getting fit. It wasn't the idea of what program you're doing or what nutrition plan you're following, but you have to read in between the lines. I was talking about the mindset it takes to go from your starting point to the next day or even to that 90-day workout concept. So when I looked at it, I thought, I'm not even talking about what kind of weight you should do, what kind of nutrition program that you follow. I was talking about how it felt when you go through the change and what you need to go from point A to point B. And when I heard the idea of a podcast, all I thought was, I'm not going to talk about health and fitness. I'm going to talk about something that helps you get it. And I thought about it, I'm like, it's mindset. And before I even started recording the podcast, I wrote 18 blogs on my phone, just writing ideas of stuff that I see, stuff that I feel, stuff that I notice that says, okay, that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. Or I see a behavior that I disagree with. I'm like, why is someone behaving that way? Started writing, started writing, started writing. Next thing you know, those were my first 8 podcasts.
Nice. I always think when someone gets up to speak in Toastmasters, I was never one to be afraid of speaking. Actually, my teacher would say, "Shut up, Sandy." Just not. I'm the one that's always my hand is up and ready to speak. I never had that fear, so I really sympathize with people who have the fear of speaking. And I see people get up in Toastmasters and they're paralyzed. Even good speakers, they get up there and something happens. And that's what I like to talk about or think about with other Toastmasters, especially ones that who are new. What is it that causes this paralysis in you? What is it that they say people would rather be in a coffin than be the one speaking at the funeral?
What was the one? What was the
What
phrase they
is
said?
that thing?
Okay, I'll speak to both parts of that because when my grandmother passed away, my mother wrote the eulogy. She asked me to give it in 1994. And I thought of it as I read it, it was deeply personal, deeply personal. But I read it and I thought, I have a script, so I don't really have to stray. And I read it and paced it like I was actually going to give a speech. Even though I had no idea what I was doing, I looked at it like a regular script for a play, and that's how I read it. The challenge when you write, and this is what I went through on my very first speech with Toastmasters, which is referred to as your icebreaker. I wrote it out. The actor in me. You have to write the script to know the flow of everything, to understand the connection from point A to point B.
Yes.
You understand the transitions. And when I gave the icebreaker, and for those of you listening, you may have been through this too, I forgot half of it. Half of it.
See, I don't write things out. I'm a bullet point person.
That's what I got to. That's how I
I'm
transitioned.
a bullet point. I have 3 bullet points for the opening, 3 bullet points for the body. I only have 1 or 2 for the conclusion. But in my head, I think in PowerPoint. I swear to you, I've used PowerPoint for so long. I had a marketing company. That's just the way I think. What do I need to say? And so when I get up, I can speak on anything, almost anything, because I bullet pointed. I'm opening up with, "Hey, this is James, and this is what we're talking about today. Introduce yourself." This is my 2 bullet points. And then we launch into what are we talking about? Toastmasters, speaking theater, my bullet points. And then I'll wrap it up at the end. And you talk more in the middle because it's gonna be an hour or half an hour. This is how I've always thought. I don't know how I came to that, but Toastmasters solidified it for me.
Let's take a real world example. I like how Toastmasters solidified that for you, but let's take a real world example of something that we go through in life and tie that to Toastmasters, because I could give you an example to that. As I mentioned to you prior, I work at Home Depot in my job. What we do each year, we reset the store for the season. We did a Halloween reset in September, and last week we did the Christmas reset. So there's certain aspects of the store. There's Halloween displays and products over here, Christmas displays and products over here.
Which annoys me to no end, James, I must say, but continue.
I'm just a worker. I don't have that plan on that. Just the middleman, don't get the middleman, Sandy. Dr. Sandy, please. Okay. So what's referred to is the rig, which is basically a map or a planogram, which basically describes exactly how it's supposed to look, what product is supposed to go where. We have people doing that. There's also products that are on pallets. So we have a lift driver and a spotter who go to the store where it's located, drop the pallet, bring it over, and they're packing it out. What I did in the speech, my speech title was called Resetting the Store. Nobody had any idea what I was talking about. And there is someone who's in our club whose husband works for the store, and I work on the Met team. Different dichotomy, different aspect of it. The store associates work with customers. Our team, we work with product. That's the basic difference between the two. So as I was explaining what we did, I said how each person does a different aspect to it. By the time each day is done, we have a portion of it done. Example, first day, they set the beams. So then that planogram, it gives you 42 inches here, then a 16-inch gap here, and then an 18-inch gap there. And then the beam should be 12 feet high. And there should, Mike, it should be 16 feet high, 12 feet across. Everything is spelled out exactly to the inch, measurement-wise. Then product, it's specific, saying this product A goes here, product B goes in slot 2, product C goes in slot 3. So as we're doing the planogram, if you could find that product on that pallet, you just pack it out. And that's how the team is working together. When they do that, there's 5 or 6 pallets, so they're putting different product in different places, they're constantly moving around. Once that's done, there's floor displays that people build. It's a constant moving process, and it doesn't stop. So the day we start it, we go until we take a break, take the break, go until we take lunch, come back to the end. And I'll make the comparison from theater. It was the same way. You get to the show at 6 o'clock, make sure all the props are ready. Actors come at 6:30. They're getting their stuff ready for makeup, get the costumes ready. Crew comes in at 7, make sure all the tech stuff is ready, make sure the lights are set, sound is set. 7:30 audience comes in. 7:45, everybody's getting places. 8 o'clock showtime, game's on. It's the same kind of concept. So when I actually took the theater concept, brought it to my mindset at Home Depot, I was able to make everything function. Now here's the tie into Toastmasters. Every year, Dr. Sandi knows, we compete. There are speech competitions, both at multiple levels. The club, the area, which combines multiple clubs, the district, which is, division, which is multiple areas, and the district, which in our case covers all of Long Island. And there are people that help out, which are referred to as functionaries. For me, I see functionaries as the tech team.
Right.
From the theater aspect, I had to learn the tech side of Toastmasters. So doing that, I understood all the moving parts to make things work, but I had to start at the club. What's the difference of a grammarian versus a table topics person? What's the difference of an evaluator versus a Toastmaster of the day? I had to understand the differences of each role. Same in theater. What's the difference of a lighting person versus a sound person? Another example would be, what would be the difference between the runners backstage versus the person manning the spotlight in the back? Or what's the difference between the stage manager and a director? I had to understand it by going through it. And it was the same thing I did with Toastmasters. I sat, I watched what was going on just to understand it. And then when I saw a challenge, I said, how can I help? And that's what I did. I am not the type of person to just sit back and relax. That's why I don't go to a show. Because it's for me, if I actually went to a show, I would be sitting there watching the show, but my eye would catch something off guard, off stage. Wait, he missed his cue, or he doesn't have a prop, or he doesn't have sound on his microphone. I'm constantly watching that. In Toastmasters, it's the same. In the speech, when someone's giving a 5 to 7 minute speech, I'm watching, even though I'm not timer, I still time. I like to see where everybody is. And in the Zoom environment, you're constantly watching. You have the participants up, whose mic's on, whose camera's on, Who's speaking? Who's not? Do they want to be recorded? There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see. But from my theater experience, I'm used to that. I'm used to the challenges. But when things work smoothly, I always ask, how are we doing? Because I can't see how we do. I just know the way of the flow, the way everything goes. That's the carryover from theater to Toastmasters for me.
Well, the functionary part, I think people don't see. They just think Toastmasters is all about the communication side. And there's a leadership aspect to Toastmasters, which is invisible
Mhm.
to the everyday Toastmaster. Because, as you said, we do have officers, we have a president, we have a VP of PR, which I've been for at least 10 years running. Because it's such an easy job for me having had a marketing company, and I can do it from anywhere, even when I travel. And then we have a secretary, and we have a treasurer, we have a VP of membership, we have a sergeant of arms who opens up the meetings and does. So there are all these roles within Toastmasters. It's not just get up and do your speech. That's in addition to doing your speaking and in addition to doing all your other things that you need to do. I think if people saw it holistically as both a leadership program and a communications program, they would be more apt to say, I'm a behind the scenes kind of guy. Let me take on the sergeant of arms role where I can just open up the meeting, say hi to people, and I'm out pretty much. That's a role for an introvert, not an extrovert person. I don't think we market that enough in Toastmasters. It's always about the speech and, of course, the glamour of the actors,
Mhm.
the people who go on stage and the people who are presenting their speeches at the conference, the international conference, and everybody's excited. That's what most people think Toastmasters is. And I think it's doing it an injustice if you just show that side all the time.
I
Because the
agree.
people who are afraid of speaking are never going to really fully embrace the other side of it if they don't know about it.
There's a technique I learned when I was in theater, and this goes back to 1993. I was working at the Green Mountain Guild in Killington, Vermont for the summer. And at the time, I had a hard time getting roles. They would always chose somebody else. I always worked backstage. And when I was working there, non-paying job, been doing that for a long time because of the passion. I did it and I asked Bob, his name was Robert L. Holland. He was the stage manager for 3 of the shows with the company. I asked him, can I over audition? He said, don't audition. I said, why not? And then he said something and it changed my mindset to a lot of things. He said, the first part I knew, actors are a dime a dozen. We've been hearing that for years. But the second thing he said changed my mindset completely. He said, actors are a dime a dozen. Techies are where it's at. Techies? Why techies? He said, because techies are the one behind the scenes to make everything flow. And that was in 93. The next 2 years in college, being a theater major, I stage managed 3 different shows. I did sound on different shows. My last show in college, I didn't just act in the show. I helped do the scenes. I did the lighting. I designed the program. For me, it's always about how can you take what you know and keep pushing that to the next level. And even if you didn't want to be in front of the microphone, front of the stage, there's always ways to help out, even with Toastmasters. Even if you didn't want to speak, even if you didn't want to get up and stand in front of people, there's always people who are needed, either as a timer, a grammarian, or being able to help out. And I'll tell you a story. 3 years ago, when I was in my first Toastmasters meeting, I had no idea what I was doing. When I started attending regularly when my schedule changed, I took the easiest role you can, timer. Why?
Timer.
It's numbers. All you have to do is know when to go
Raise the
do this, when to do
card.
this, and when to do that. Exactly. But I got good at it, not just at the club level. Somehow, and just like in life, word goes around and people started talking, and I got the phone call. Can you work this area contest as timer? Sure, no problem. Then I get a call again. Division. Can you work the division contest? Sure, no problem. Can you work the district contest? Sure, no problem. That was the fall. Now in the spring, the contest changed a little bit because what in the contest level in the spring, that's where the big game happens. It still goes club, area, division, district. Then you have regional quarterfinals. And then you got the big tamale of everything. You have the International World Championship of Public Speaking. I've heard about it and I'm like, that sounds interesting. And I've never shared this story. In the spring, club, sure, no problem. Started getting calls for area, started helping out. As a timer, division, same. District, same. Time goes by. About a month later, I get not a call, I get an email. Can you be the timer for the international contest? Okay. Ran through it the same way, and I can share this. The year Verity Price won, I was the
Yeah,
timer for that contest. And when I saw
nice.
that, I was like, wow, she won. But here's a little tidbit I picked up. Working so many contests this timer, even though you're not speaking, you hear what works in someone's speech. You understand the patterns of how to speak clearly, how to get your point across using the dynamics of your voice, when to go loud, when to go soft. I learned that just by listening. Working so many contests, I started to develop my own formula. What does it take to give a winning speech? And I never shared that with anybody, but I wrote it out, how to make it work, everything. And then it happened. At the area contest last year for Area 14, it was a combined, all 5 areas, areas 11 through 15 combined to do a combined area contest. Somebody did the formula in her speech. And I never told anybody. And I'm working the contest as Zoom master. And something she said caught my attention, and I shifted my focus and I leaned in and I'm watching and listening, thinking, come on, don't mess it up. Keep the content. Because I know the way the flow was supposed to go because I created it. But I'm hearing her give it. I'm thinking, she got it, she got it, she got it. And she did one particular delivery at a certain point. I call the nugget. She dropped the nugget at the right moment before she got to the end of it. Like The Usual Suspects, the movie, you wait to that very last moment to drop that one nugget when you're like, oh, it ties everything together. She dropped it at the right moment, and I was ready to rip my headphones off. Like, come on, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. I was very excited because at that one particular moment, she dropped the nugget. She gave the delivery at the end. Her tone changed accordingly to give that last moment of presentation. And all I thought was like, mic drop right there. I was so excited. I'm like, I think she's got it. I think she's got it. I think she's got it. But as Zoom master, you have to remain impartial. You
Yeah,
cannot show any emotion. I'm thinking, I think she's got it. I think she's got it. I think she's got it. She won that area. Her number was in my phone. I'm texting her. I said, oh my God, congratulations, congratulations. We finished the Zoom. We talked for 20 minutes. She's like, how did you know? And I explained it to her. So for me, there's my soul again. I like being able to see the process of what people go through. I enjoy helping people go from point A to point B. But as a contest for Zoom Master, when you get to the higher levels and you watch people, you're more conscious. You don't have to be as conscious as you are at the club levels. You could just sit back and watch and think, let's see how they do.
yes.
That's the best joy for me when you sit back and say, okay, let's see what they got. And you could see how many of these do they go through? Do they have that pattern? Can they follow the flow without even saying a word? And when you see it, I just sit here thinking, yeah, they got it. I think they got it. I think they got it. And
What
when
did
you see,
you think of this year's international contest?
I watched it, I looked at, well, we watched it in a group. We watched the contest in a group. And as we watched it, I'm looking still from the theatrical aspect, the flow to the story, and watching all the dynamics. I'm looking, I'm thinking, okay, she's got it. And I just know it, like right off the bat. By the end of it, I know exactly, yeah, and it was just very simple. Yep, she had it. Nope, she dropped the nugget too soon. Nope, pace was too quickly. I'm picking all that stuff up. And there was one person I was watching, and there were other people on that Zoom. There must have been about 25, 30 people on that Zoom, all experienced Toastmasters, all sharing different feedback. And I'm hearing their feedback, all of it, 100% spot on, direct, concise, saying, nope, she had this was wrong. She gave this to wrong. And I'm listening to it, I'm like, yep, yep, yep. I'm agreeing with it because I see it too. But the
Exactly.
advantage that I like in Toastmasters, and for anybody new, this is a big benefit to you. You have people who are of different levels of public speaking, not just at the club, not just at a business, not just your own business, or even speaking publicly. It's people who all understand what it takes to be able to deliver a good speech, and also what works, what doesn't work. But when you're watching, I hate to use this example, it's like you're watching TV and you're thinking, this is not working, this is not right. But on the other side, when it does work, you look at it thinking like, yeah, keep going, keep going. And you're excited because you know, you don't know where the story's going to go, but you know, if they wait to that right moment where that piece comes
Yes,
out, you look at it like, what's the term they use? The sweet spot, I guess.
yes,
When it gets to that
yes,
sweet spot and you look, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. And when they deliver, you're just like, yes. There's always that one little moment. But then when you see the results, you look at it like, please let it be this person. Please let it be this person. And if they win, part of you is like, how did I know? There's always that
yes.
humble aspect to it.
I love the contest. I haven't been in one probably a couple of years. I usually do at the club level, but usually when it gets to the area, I'm never available or something. But what I like about the contest, first of all, the topic. The topics are always phenomenal. I always walk away with either my heart beating fast or, oh, that moment when you just feel it to your soul. That's what I love. People can tell a story in 7 minutes or the time it takes to have watched a movie. When someone takes you through a really good speech, you don't want to turn the channel
Correct.
because you can't wait to see the outcome. You can't wait to see the ending of what's going on, like a great movie or a good movie. If you're in the middle and you're like, oh, I could go watch, Law and Order instead of listening to this, then you know that something was a little bit off.
It's like
But if
having a
you sit there, yeah, waiting.
it's like
I
you
love
have,
that.
I know this is a men's health book, but this is what I got. It's like having that one point of the chapter and you're looking and you're like, wait, he did what? And you read a little bit like,
Yes,
no, no, don't leave me there. Don't leave me there. And you just have to flip that page. What happened? It's that
yes,
instantaneous thing in the speech. Because in a book, it'll pace slower. So this way it'll develop the story and then leave that little hint at the end of it. And you're like, wait, you did what? And it makes you want to have that page turn. In the speech, it's complicated because how do you know when to give that page turn moment to keep the audience engaged with your speech? That's one of the biggest challenges even I still
it
struggle
is.
with.
It is. I too struggle with that. But what I developed on my own And I have it written down in our Toastmasters website. We put all the little tidbits and references and things that we have. And I give all the new Toastmasters coming in, it's our opening speech to them. This is how you should pace yourself. And so I took the Toastmasters book and I put timing, I put my bullet points, and then I put timing next to it. So again, you know when you should be wrapping up your opening. 1 to 2 minutes tops, 1 minute tops. And then you get into the body and you have your 3 bullet points. And if it's a 5 to 7 minute speech, you're going to put about 3 minutes into the middle, and then you're going to wrap it up with another minute. So if you have 1 minute at the beginning, 3 minutes in the middle, 1 minute at the end, that's your 5 minutes limit. If you want to go to 7 minutes, then you have more room to stretch it out in the middle or at the beginning or at the end. And so you should always know when you're looking at the timer, when the yellow card goes up, you should know where you are in your speech
Mm-hmm.
to be
Exactly.
wrapping up.
Or in the event that if that yellow card goes up and you didn't get to that third point, you have to figure out very quickly how to summarize that second section and go to the conclusion, because if you miss that little window there, to use a technical term, you could red box go over. Meaning
Yes.
red box, meaning you could actually hit that 7-minute mark, which could be a challenge. The challenge is knowing which point to hit, what story you could give to it, if it's a small story or a big story. And if you have 2 other points, just watch that timer. That timer will say, if it's yellow, okay, I got 90 seconds. I could pull something out really quickly, or maybe I should actually just get to the conclusion and tie these 2 up. And in doing that, you're still giving an effective speech. It's not like you're leaving things out. You're just kind of editing what you're doing because of the sake of time. And that was the one thing I learned the most in Toastmasters. I became very conscious of time. Not just my time giving a speech, but the time when you're working on doing things, even in your personal life.
Yes.
I'm not saying in my day-to-day life I try to get things done in 5 to 7 minutes, because that's not going to be happening. But I did learn to be more conscious of how I use my time in my personal life. Whether I'm sitting editing an audiobook or writing ideas for a podcast, or even in Toastmasters, going through the training to be able to deliver a speech, and then using their format to design the content myself based on my thoughts and ideas and what's important to me, is what I usually do going forward. And what I really like about Toastmasters, and I don't share this too often, you get to share what matters to you.
Yes.
That
Yes. All
is
the
what
time.
really means a lot.
I love the mentoring part of it too. There's a mentoring component. I don't see that in a lot of clubs, but in our club, we take mentoring very seriously.
We do too.
New people coming in, we have a program for them. We have a mentoring night every month where we deliver something about Toastmasters that everyone should know. And we assign mentors and we meet with our mentees. I'm a mentor now. I still have a mentor. I'm a mentor, but I have a mentor. We still meet with our mentors and talk about how can I be better, because you can still be better. What will I be doing next? What is my next? I just finished my level 5 and I'm saying, okay, what am I going to do next? Which path am I going to take this time, and what do I need to get from those paths?
It's interesting that you say that, because I went to the other dynamic. I've been through the path aspect. I've been visionary communication, motivational strategies. Then I did the Pathways Mentor Program. I was in a transition between the two, but with VP as VP of membership, I had to focus on that for a little while, which is fine because by doing that, I was able to mentor one particular person. She went from a complete newbie. We walked through everything, went through pathways, the educational system, learning the dynamics of giving a speech. We practiced every single week. She improved. We worked the dynamics of her speech. She got better. And then there were times she couldn't come to speak to a meeting. One day she would text me and says, I don't have anything. Okay, no problem. The next week we got together. I have a topic. What's the topic? Procrastination. What you got? And my mindset just flipped because she used a real world experience and put
Yeah,
it into Toastmasters. I think that's the most relatable thing that anybody could do, no matter what field you're in. If you take something that you know, even if you're a parent, what it's like day to day at home, how it feels going through it, and the man may not see it, and vice versa. The wife may not see the challenges at work of the what you have to deal with different issues depending on what it is. And the same on Toastmasters. A contestant may not know all the, I have to say, craziness that could happen behind the scenes. This person canceled. This person doesn't have tech. This person doesn't have a cell phone. This person, there's so many things we go through. And by going through it, we learn, how do we get through this? What do we need to do? I think that's the bottom line lesson, whether it's theater, Toastmasters, or life. When when something happens, you look at it, how do we get through that? And where do we go from there? I think that's the best
absolutely.
lesson to take. I think that's the best lesson I learned in Toastmasters. What's the word? Adaptation for the
Yes,
unexpected.
yes. Well, I think we've covered just about everything with Toastmasters. I mean, there's more, but really, this is the essence. If anyone is listening to this podcast, you can find Toastmasters at exactly toastmasters.org. O-R-G.
Hmm.
Go on there. There will be something that you can use for your speaking. As I said, the fee for Toastmasters is really inexpensive. You can find chapters virtually or somewhere near you. If there are people who are still in person, we're a hybrid. We'll do in person sometimes, but we're mostly online. There are Toastmasters anywhere in the world you go,
Hmm.
you will find a Toastmasters club. I did that when I traveled by myself all the time. I get to a city, the first thing I do is I look up Toastmasters. When are you having your meeting? Because instead of moping or not doing anything, but you show up at their Toastmasters meeting and you feel so welcome and you already know the routine. You can walk in and say, oh, you don't have a blank, blank, blank evaluator, topic, table topic. I'll be one because it's the same anywhere that you
Hmm.
go. I implore you, if you try it once, you will love it, unless you get even more afraid, because I've seen that happen. People come in and they panic and they
Hmm.
get so afraid of it that they leave Toastmasters and don't come back.
But there's one lesson that I learned, and I think that applies to everything, not just Toastmasters, not just theater. We all got to start somewhere.
Yes,
Everybody is always a beginner. Nobody comes into this an expert unless they've had years of training. It's no different than learning how to cook. The
yes,
first time I learned how to cook, I burned my eggs, I burnt my toast, I put too much sugar in the coffee, but you learn through the process. It's the
yes,
same with Toastmasters. You go in, you give your first speech, or even you do table topics, and you get this little lift of feeling like, yeah, I did something. And
abs-
sometimes that's all it takes because that little bit there makes the biggest difference. Because you never know, what do they say? How's the phrase go? If you throw a pebble in this, if you throw a pebble in the water, you never really know where it goes. Oh, for the
goes.
ripples.
The right.
If you throw a pebble in the water, you never know how far out those ripples go. It's the
Exactly.
same with speaking. If you take that first step, even if you just walk in and say, hi, I'd like to watch today. There's nothing wrong with that because you learn by observing. And that's how I went through everything in my life, whether it was in theater, singing in a barbershop chorus, working backstage in shows, Zoom. I had no idea how to Zoom when the pandemic hit a few years ago. I had to learn myself.
Ah,
But it's a constant evolving process because what you learn, you take forward with you. You're not starting up again. So,
yes.
Dr. Sandy Webster, thank you for this today. I've been aching
Thank
to talk
you.
about Toastmasters for a long time. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I appreciate you, James. And you can send me your information if you want. I will put this on the end in our outro so that people can reach out to you and probably join the Toastmasters group that you're in or that I'm in. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too, Dr. Sandy.
This is Dr. Sandy. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on the first, where no two stories are alike, even if the circumstances are similar. Let this discussion serve as inspiration for others to show what's possible, and more importantly, to produce seconds and thirds.